Buddy. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, it's better. Someone texted me yesterday and said, "Mayor, saw you on TV. You look like crap." I was like, "Oh, well, kind of felt like it at the time, but it's amazing what a little sleep will do." So, we're going to give you, as we did yesterday, an update on our storm recovery operations now. And what I'm going to focus mostly on to kind of kick things off this morning is what we've accomplished in really the last 24 hours. I mean, if you think about, this was less than 36 hours ago that this all happened. The city's made tremendous progress during that time, tremendous progress. And on the other side of that wall is just a beehive of leadership that's getting that done. So I would be remiss if I didn't start this whole thing off with saying, man, our city really has a great EOC operation, a great process to handling emergencies in our city with the county, with the state, with the city, with the weather service. And so just tip of the hat to all the people on the other side of that wall that are working hard. All right. I'm going to start out with just kind of talking about some of the debris cleanup and the volunteerism piece of that. So I want to stress that all of our cleanup efforts right now, a majority of them I should say, we're relying a lot on volunteers to get involved and to help. Yesterday, 211 Helpline Center received about almost 500 calls related to the storm. 230 of those were people that were needing help, and 131 of those were people volunteering to help. So I'd like to flip the script on that a little bit. So I really need people to step up and help their city. If there's one message that I want you to take away today, it's that we need community involvement to help with the cleanup, and preferably people who have a contractor's truck, people who have some equipment that they might be able to, take their Friday off and help use. Side dumps, large dumps, anything like that, any large trucks, trailers, things like that are really needed right now in our city. Mark Cotter in a little bit is going to talk specifically in a few moments about what sort of trees we will be picking up, where they need to be placed, and all that. So it's not only for people needing cleanup, but it's also for business and property owners. So business and property owners, this is a really important point as well. Even if your business or your home suffered damage and you're taking care of it on your own, we still would like you to call the 211 Helpline Center and report that. Report that you had damage. And the reason being is we create an extensive audit and report that will be the assessment of the overall damage to the city. So ensuring we know what was damaged and how much damage occurred is really important, with potential reimbursements that we may get, after incident reports, all this stuff. So if you had damage, please call 211 to report what that damage was. The Red Cross shelter continues to stay open and will stay open through the weekend, depending on the need of impacted people. And I want to say, the last thing I want to say is just a note on contractors. This is my BBB hat now that I'm putting on. The Better Business Bureau has a great pamphlet. This is on the city's website as well, called When Disaster Strikes. This is everything you need to know about hiring a contractor. And there's a whole page in here about storm chasers. All right, a couple key things. If someone knocks on your door and wants to help with your tree removal, make sure they're licensed and contract with the city. They should be able to show you a piece of paper that shows the contract they have with the city. That's important, number one. Two, don't fall into any high pressure sales tactics. There's a lot of people who are going to be willing to take your money to cut down your trees. So get some bids, take your time. The tree on your lawn isn't going to ruin your property if it sits there for a few days and you have to get a competitive bid or two. And lastly, just don't pay anyone until the work is actually started. If someone says it's $500 and we'll bring our crew back tomorrow, that should be a huge red flag. So don't pay until that work has actually been started. So again, the key thing for me, help. 131 people volunteering to help. That's less than 0.1% of our city that called to help yesterday. So if we got to 1%, we'd be north of 1,000 people, and we'd have this place back to Mayberry in no time. So please sign up to help. So with that, I'm then going to turn it over to Todd Heitkamp with the Weather Service, who's going to talk about some of the weather that we're experiencing currently as well. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Mayor. Again, Todd Heitkamp, meteorologist in charge for the National Weather Service in Sioux Falls. Last name is spelled Heitkkamp. First off, I want to do something that, I got the same comments Mayor got yesterday too, saying, "Man, you look really tough yesterday." Well, yeah, I did. But one thing I did fail to do yesterday was to recognize my staff. The work that they did tirelessly and without credit or anything like that, that's what we do. That's what they do. But the work, the service that they provided, hopefully was heeded by many people in Sioux Falls. And I think that was one reason why we didn't have as many injuries and deaths. And not only the work that we did, but all the work that you guys did too on the media side of it as well. So I thank you as well. The big story, yesterday and last night has been the heavy rain. Thankfully we did not see that here in Sioux Falls. We ended up with about 1.3 inches of rain here in Sioux Falls at the airport. As we said yesterday, the heaviest rain was going to be to the north and west of Sioux Falls. Thankfully, thank God we have 20 miles distance between that heavy rainfall. We've had reports of anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of rain from, let's say, Mitchell, Colton, and those areas up into southwest Minnesota. The heaviest rainfall has fallen in areas in Slayton, Minnesota. Also, just let's say the Flandreau, Brookings area, Colton area, reports of 4 to 6 inches. So those areas obviously got more rainfall than what they needed. And the bad thing about it is that rainfall, all that moisture has to come south. And that's going to impact the rivers that we deal with. We've been dealing with this since the spring. With the Big Sioux, as well as Skunk Creeks and its tributaries. So we need to be prepared for that. We're going to be dealing with some flooding that's going to be comparable to what we saw in March. And so areas that if you had flooding, and I'm mainly talking outside of the city right now, if you had experienced flooding in March, I would say you could expect the same over the next couple of days. We're expecting many of the crests in the Big Sioux, as well as the Skunk, to occur probably late Saturday night into Sunday morning. So we have the next couple of days, the next day or so to prepare for that. But again, it really comes down to your responsibility yourself, that if you experience the flooding, take the necessary precautions that you can ahead of time to minimize the impacts that high water will have upon your property. And other than that, I will tell you the other concern that we do have, and I think Mark will talk about this in a little bit, is the debris. Again, if you have any type of debris from the storm around your property, next to a river or area that floods, you might want to start removing that, because that debris may impact the flow of that water. So again, if you have some debris around there, first start with that debris and dispose of it properly. But again, keep your eye on anything like that, because floating debris may be an issue with the higher waters in the river. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Good morning, everybody. Eric Pauley, Xcel Energy. I'm the Community Relations Manager here in Sioux Falls. Last name is Pauley, P-A-U-L-I. The update on the electric system, we're making progress. We had about roughly the numbers, a little bit stronger numbers come in last evening. So we had about 26,000 total affected. We were down to probably around the 3,500-ish range last night. We were down to about 1,900 when I left the office to come to this meeting here this morning. So we're making good headway. We have over 500 office personnel and staff, including crew members, out there in the field, in the office right now, making headway on this. So we literally have a small army out there to try to get this done as quickly and safely as possible for the public and get everybody restored and back into service. It's obviously some difficult terrain out there. We've got a lot of tree branches down, backyards, poles that are broken, etc. I did send out a news release here just a little bit ago, so a lot of this stuff is maybe reiterated information for some of you folks. But so we're making progress. The biggest thing I can ask of the general public is just to allow our crews to get to the locations that they're trying to. I know everybody wants to see what's out there, see what's going on. The more space that you can give them, the quicker they can get that service restored for you guys. So outside of that, our goal for right now, and what I'm being told from our construction folks, is we expect to be 99.9% restored for all of those that can accept service by 10 p.m. tonight. We will know more information as our crews come back in, but that's kind of what we're aiming for, and it looks like we're going to realistically be able to meet that as long as everything goes smoothly, the weather cooperates, which it looks like it's supposed to. So with that said, I guess we'll ask questions later. I'll turn it over to Mark Cotter for right now, and if any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Mark Cotter. I'm the Director of Public Works, M-A-R-K, C-O-T-T-E-R. I want to give you an update today on our debris management strategy, and we've developed a map of really the most impacted area. It's bound by 12th Street to the north, 85th Street to the south, Louise Avenue to the west, and it was Cliff Avenue to the east. We're going to stretch that east boundary over to southeastern based on some infield reports of the number of street trees that are down that need to be addressed. We've got between public works crews and private contractors, 20 crews working to address street trees that are either impeding travel or have encroached into what I call the street. Really everything, it's the street and the sidewalk area. So as you frame that up, that's really what we're focused on. If there's a tree that is between the curb and the sidewalk, we consider that a street tree. And so if that's fallen into the street, these crews that are working this area, they're going to actually physically remove that. We've had some instances where the entire root ball has been uplifted. In some cases, we can't today come and remove that entire root ball because there's gas lines that are close to it, so we'll just be cutting that and removing the tree. Other situations where there could be a tree that's on private property between the house and the sidewalk that falls into the street, and we've instructed our crews to cut that tree on the house side of the sidewalk and then remove that as well. But that's really our focus. Please do not put any debris or branches from your private property next to the street. We've opened up true free branch drop-off sites. They're operating really well, and we want people to utilize that method to dispose of them, okay? We also need to reiterate any unneeded traffic, unnecessary traffic, please do not go into these areas. These property owners are not only have their own resources in cleaning up their properties, they're likely going to have contractors and trailers in there, and then we've got some large equipment that are rolling down these areas. So we really ask for your cooperation to not go into these areas and clog up traffic. It's only creating more safety issues for us to address. Again, the tree debris locations are, we got one near the street division, near Chambers Street and Cliff Avenue. Once you get close to that area, you'll see changeable message boards that really show you where those locations are at. And then we got one at just north of 12th Street and Lyons Boulevard. Again, more changeable message boards that will guide you in one location, exit out another. Drop-off sites are very busy. Yesterday, we've also reached out to Warden Young to get some additional inmate resources to help people unload so they can, when they pull into those sites, they can quickly get unloaded so they can go back and, if they need to, get another load and bring it to us. Again, those operations, they're going to run 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're going to run them today through the end of September. Any mixed debris, anything that's got construction materials intermixed in with the branches, which is common with a tornado, we want all that material to go directly to the landfill. We've also begun grinding the tree debris at these locations. You can imagine that just the mountain of trees and branches that are stacking up. To reduce that volume, we've got grinding operations starting, and I think we'll work with our communications team to get an infield press meet tomorrow so you can see that operation, ask questions about what's all involved with that. We're going to continue to look at the city in the impacted areas and adjust our debris management operations accordingly. As Todd said, with all the high rain events that happened last night, most of that water is going to network its way to and through Sioux Falls. And so we've got another operation that is starting to prepare for those high river flows. We are already seeing higher than normal flows at the wastewater plant, and that'll be another item that we manage through on this. But hopefully today this gives you a good recap of really where the most impacted areas are, where we're focusing our efforts. We are going to stretch this from Cliff Avenue over to Southeastern Avenue. And if you are curious about what the different colors are, as we have an engineering technician out there following these crews, they're updating roads that have been cleared, and then we turn them to green. And so I was just told before we got in here, this whole area down here is turned to green, and so that one's been cleared. We're going to make substantial progress based on the number of resources that we've hired to bring on. Got 3 private contractors of SoCup, Runge, and First Rate, and we just brought on Merle and Roy's this morning to bring some additional resources. So next I will bring up Jason Gearman with Minnehaha County. Thank you.
Good morning, Jason Gearman, Minnehaha County Emergency Management. Last name is Gearman. Although we didn't have many issues the other night when the tornado came through Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County is now going to have some issues similar to what we had in the spring of this year. As Mr. Heidkamp said, we're looking at high water levels coming through on late Saturday, early Sunday throughout the Sioux River from Del Rapids south. And that's due to the heavy rains that were up north of Lake Madison in that area, so this has all got to come south. Right now, we have deputies out, county highways out, and they're closing a lot of roads. Currently, roads to the west of Sioux Falls on Madison Street have water flowing over them. Baltic has one way in and out of the city. East by Brandon is going to have some issues due to some flooding, possibly record level. And Skunk Creek, which flows east of Hartford into Sioux Falls and obviously in through the city, we're going to see some pretty high water levels there. Encourage people to stay off the roads if they don't have to. We're going to have similar issues in the spring with the soft roads and all the moisture. And we may run out of barricades. Do not drive through the water. We've already had a couple incidents this morning of that. And I just encourage people to not go out into the county unless you have to. And especially right now, stay away from the Baltic area. The only way in and out of there is a gravel road right now. Any other questions specific to the county I can take care of now? Other than that, I'll turn it over back to the city-specific questions.
G-E-R-M-A-N, Jason.
Gearman.
And title one more time.
Emergency manager.
You said that there was water over the roads west of Sioux Falls. Where was that?
Madison Street now. I just received a report before we walked in here that there's water coming over the road there. We're not looking at as long of a duration of flooding due to the good forecast, I guess, that we have, but it's going to be a lot similar to what was this spring, so it's going to be pretty severe. So if you're in Renner, get prepared. Baltic, Del Rapids, and anybody in that Sioux River basin that had to leave during the spring should probably get ready to leave for a few days starting, Saturday. All right, I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
I have like 2 minutes and I got to get to 11, so if there's any questions for me, I'll take those. Otherwise, I know Todd has a couple follow-up items.
As far as people driving around barricades and all that, what, you tell them not to do it. There's no teeth behind that. If you tell them
It is an enforceable offense. That would be Sam's lane, but if that is witnessed by an officer, that is a class, what misdemeanor?
It's a class 2.
Class 2 misdemeanor. So you can get a ticket for it. So just don't do it. All right. Thank you, guys. And I just want to say I do really appreciate the media's coverage because there's been a lot of messages to get out in the last 36 hours, and you guys have been a very critical part of that. So thank you for your great coverage the last day and a half. Appreciate it.
A couple of things I wanted to emphasize a little bit. There's been a little bit of confusion about what we talked about yesterday with the sirens. I want to make sure people understand that the sirens, again, are intended to warn, intended to warn people that are outdoors, not those that are indoors, because you have multiple methods to receive that information while you are indoors, such as through the media, through social media, through the wireless emergency alert system on your cell phones. So those are intended and always have been. It's not a shift in policy or anything like that since they've been created since World War II technology. They have always meant to warn people that are outdoors. So again, the outdoor warning sirens are another tool that a person can use to enhance or improve their safety of themselves and for their family members. The other thing I want to emphasize is what Jason kind of alluded to and what the mayor just talked about, driving around barricades and staying off flooded roads. Folks, people have no idea if that road surface is still there or if it's been compromised in some sort of way. So if you come across any flooded road, whether or not it's gravel, concrete, paved, whatever, avoid it at all costs. But you have no idea how deep that water is and whether or not the road is still there. Okay?
Todd, how frustrating, you know, you heard about people they were stayed in for the tornado and then they go out and they drive and they go on 41st and they just get in everybody's way. I mean,
Yeah, that.
what are we supposed to be doing to tell these people that and they don't get the heat on it?
Well, I mean, I could talk until I'm blue in the face about it, and people are not going to necessarily listen. But I've always told people, don't become part of the problem. You know, we're already dealing with the problem. Let the first responders, let the people do what they need to do, what they've been hired to do, and don't become part of the problem where they have to start responding to you now at that point in time. And also, I think we need to be respectful. You know, these people that have been out there and been impacted by the storms, whether or not we're talking about the tornado or the flood, a lot of them are dealing with that in their own unique way. Some of them, quite honestly, are probably in shock. And you drive by there and you start gawking and whatever. It's just not, you know, again, I think we're more respectful around here than what other areas, and we need to remember that.
I missed yesterday's press conference, but how lucky were we with it that tornadoes were on the front side of those thunderstorms? Because if it like down in Moore, they were on the back side and they were F5s and we were F2s.
Yeah, we were talking about that all, you know, the past 48 hours, that, again, there's two different types of tornadoes. Ones that we experienced on Tuesday and have experienced throughout the summer, the ones that form on the leading edge of the storm, and they usually are embedded or, you know, enshrouded in rain, and versus the ones that we have experienced in years past, such as Spencer or Manchester or Moore, Oklahoma, as you referenced. Those tornadoes are typically a lot stronger. These tornadoes that we experienced Tuesday night, honestly, only enhanced or increased the wind speed by about 20 to 30 miles an hour on top of what already was occurring. So it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse if those tornadoes would have been occurring, let's say, at 7, 8 o'clock at night. The amount of traffic that would have been out on the roads at that point in time would have been huge. Yeah, it could have been a lot worse, and like as I mentioned yesterday, that's my nightmare scenario that we've been talking about with the city for a number of years. And thankfully, again, due to the hard work of the city, the Weather Service, the media, and then finally the public, and heeding that warning information and getting themselves to the place of safety, we didn't have more injuries and deaths than what we already had.
Mr. Gary mentioned that there wouldn't be as long a duration of flooding.
Correct.
How long do you expect the flooding in the rivers to last?
Well, we're expecting the crest of the Big Sioux to occur probably Saturday night into Sunday morning. And the reason why it's going to be a fairly fast-moving crest is because we're not expecting any additional rainfall. When you compare that to the spring, we would have had also the snow melt that was taking place. So that causes the duration of the crest to be much longer. With this one here, we're just expecting the high water to pass through. But again, just because it's the crest doesn't mean that the water's going to go down, you know, dramatically right away. It's still going to be a long process, but at least it's not going to be a long, drawn-out process as far as the crest is concerned.
Can you explain how the alert system works on the cell phones? Who activates that whole process, and how muting a cell phone can also mute that alert overnight?
Yeah, Beth, what she's referring to is the wireless emergency alert notification, otherwise known as WEA. That is a federal system that we as the Weather Service can activate at times when we issue flash flood warning or a tornado warning. Not for severe thunderstorm warnings, but only for those two warnings. And so when we issue a tornado warning, that will activate the cell phones that are contained within that warning area. So if you are, let's say, if you are a resident of Sioux Falls and you on Tuesday night were up in Minneapolis, your cell phone would not have been alerted for that warning because your cell phone wasn't contained within that warning box. Now, if you go to bed at night, like what many people did Tuesday night, the normal habit is to silence your cell phone or to mute it. Yeah, that also will mute those notifications. And a lot of people have asked me, well, I never got that notification. Well, then you need to work with your cell phone provider and to make sure that your phone is set up to allow you to receive those notifications. Again, it puts the ownership back on you to make sure that your systems are working the way they need to be working to receive the information that you need to protect your life and the lives of the family members around you. Any other questions for me? Okay.
Eric Pauley, Xcel Energy again. I mentioned earlier that we anticipate having 99.9% restoration by 10 p.m. I just want to make sure the public knows that that is for folks that are able and ready to accept service, meaning it's if they might have a mast that's been broken and that service has been inspected and then we can come back and hook it up. So I just want to clarify that, make sure folks are utilizing the resources. We've got it posted on our social media. It was in the news release, et cetera. So just make sure that folks are taking those steps to get those masts fixed, and then we can come out and re-energize. I just wanted to clarify that for folks.
You
Yes.
said 1,900, is that 1,900 households or people,
1,900 customers.
customers?
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Hi, Sam Clemens. I just wanted to let you know, driving past a barricade, the fine for that is $122.50. Last past spring, we actually had quite a few tickets were issued with that. Two things could happen. You could get a ticket and probably get lucky, or you drive past a barricade and you could ruin your car, which is going to be a lot more than $122. But the barricades are there for a reason. Sometimes there may be an officer there. Sometimes it may just be the barricades. People may see cars floating there, which is part of the reason the barricades get put there. But just because cars drive past that doesn't mean that it's a good thing to do. So if you see the barricades, take a different route, find higher ground, someplace that you could get across. One other thing, since I'm up here, we've seen a few comments, usually it's in social media, that we've seen this about some looting that's taking place. We haven't seen any of that happen. There have been 2 reports that we had. One of them were some employees cleaning out a building. The other one that was basically unfounded. We haven't seen any instances of looting. We haven't heard any other reports of that that have come in. There's certainly been some normal crime that's happened, but nothing out of the ordinary. That's all I have, unless you guys had any questions for me. No? Anybody else? Any questions from anybody else?
What's for you about the tree pickup?
Sure.
Just want to clarify a couple of things.
Yep.
So if people have tree limbs or trees in their boulevard, do they have to be touching the street to be picked up?
So maybe give me an example.
Just along Phillips Avenue, there are quite a few, I guess most of them are touching the street, but does the boulevard count for a pickup?
So if the tree originates between the curb and the sidewalk, or the back of the street and the sidewalk, that's considered a street tree. And if that branch comes off that tree, if it's small enough, we would encourage the property owner just to run that to the branch drop-off site. If it's large, say it's 6-inch in diameter, since it's outside of our sort of focus zone, they can call us and we'll map that and really address that. But I would really just, we've got really the hardest hit area here that's bound by 12th Street to 85th Street, Louise. That'll ultimately stretch over to Southeastern Avenue. We'll drive each one of these streets, but really we want to just make sure that the streets are clear and open. And the reason why we opened that branch drop-off site yesterday morning at 7 a.m., we know people, like the mayor said yesterday, it's a very resilient city. A lot of people come together to work together, and we want you to find means and methods to actually get that branch to the branch drop-off sites.
And, for people who are here for the ice storm, is this kind of a similar to Operation Tree Strike at all?
No, this is a lot different. So in that ice event, ice weighted down on branches, and a lot of branches came down throughout the city. There's been, 3 tornadoes that hit here, but tornadoes are a lot different than an ice storm. There's a lot of twisted, mangled there's a lot more larger trees that are affected in this event than were even in the ice storm. That's why we have a different operation for debris management on this event than what we had for that event. And essentially, we just want to, again, remind people that if it's a street tree, if it's between the sidewalks, and especially if it's in this area, we're going to physically drive down every street and we're going to take care of that tree. If it's on the private property, meaning on the house side of the sidewalk, if it falls into the road in this area, we'll also do that. If it's outside this area and you've got a concern, you can certainly call us and we can map that if it's large enough and actually assist you. But we've got 211's, got a lot of resources that people that want to actually get out and help, so we can quickly get the city cleaned up. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for coming today. Tomorrow when we formalize it, we'll probably do an infield press meet to show the tree grinding operation. Thanks.